Hello and welcome to Mental Health Moments. We are hopeful that you're able to stay with us the entire time. We have some great information and we're looking forward to sharing it with you. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Mental Health Moments. The subject that we're dealing with tonight is one of the most requested topics that we've had since we started this channel. And tonight on this podcast, we're going to open the discussion and we're going to bring out a few thoughts. And then in the next week, we're going to open another video to cover it in a little bit more in depth. The subject that we're going to be dealing with tonight is as serious as anything that we've discussed so far. Tonight, we're going to be talking about suicide and just as importantly, how it affects everyone who is involved. I feel like it's important to begin with an acknowledgement, and it's important to say that if you have been affected by this in any way, if someone in your family has felt like this was their way out, or if you happen to have been there yourself, or if you feel like you're there right now, first of all, I want you to know that it's important, and it's not a cliche for us to be able to say we're sorry that you have dealt with that and that you've been affected by it. It is important to say so. And secondly, if at any time during this discussion this becomes a little bit too much for you to be able to process, we certainly understand if you need to take the time to pause, if you need to turn this off, and if you need to rest for a few moments because it's a lot to take in. The reality is that when it comes to the subject of suicide, we have all been affected by it. We've all dealt with it in our own ways. The earliest memory that I have of suicide is in junior high school. One day, one of my cousins actually stopped attending classes, and over the next few days, they didn't come back, and then the word started to spread and filter out that they had taken their life, and that was way back in the 70s. And it was a whole different world then. At the time, I didn't understand what that meant or what it even was about. And if our world was difficult enough for someone then, you can imagine how difficult it is in the days that we're living in right now. The time that we're living in is as stressful as anything that we've ever experienced. In 2020, there were nearly 46,000 deaths in the United States directly attributed to suicide, making it the 12th leading cause of death in the United States. And that number is probably a little bit low. The number is probably a little bit higher than that. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, that same year, 12.2 million adults seriously thought about suicide. 3.2 million of them actually made a plan, and 1.2 million more actually attempted to take their own life. Between the years of 1999 and 2019, the numbers of suicides, the death rate has escalated by 33%, and this is something that I think is pretty important. 75% of all suicides, successful completions, are men. So it's something that we men deal with as well. While I was preparing for this, so many things happened. The first thing came to me from a friend who sent me a private note about a moment in his own life that highlighted for me one of the things that I think needed to be talked with about. He had had a family member pass away, and as the weeks went by, he started to feel more and more pressure to, carry the family along and make sure that everyone was okay. And as a part of that process, he started to drink a little more heavily than normal. And at one night while he was out drinking, it all just kind of came crashing in on him at the moment that he was least prepared to deal with it. And in his mind, he said, I just decided that as I was driving home, I was just going to run into a tree. And what he said was, it just happened. One moment, I wasn't thinking about it at all. And the next moment, there I was. I made the decision to drive into a tree. It was a snap judgment. Well, thankfully, he didn't complete the act, and thankfully he's still with us to be able to share that story. I recently watched a documentary on people who jump off the Golden Gate Bridge. As you know, in the United States, it's one of those places where people go. And I was reading survivor stories, and in several of the survivor stories, what they said was that the moment that I left the bridge, they said, I realized that I did not want to die. Sometimes help comes from just knowing that our problems are real. They're very real, but they are temporary. And even when we don't find or see a way out, there is always going to be a way out. This week, while I was preparing for this, I put out a notification on Facebook that I was going to be preparing this discussion, and the responses that people gave me were incredible. Some of them came from you, people sharing their stories, and I just wanted to pause and tell you how much I appreciated that. I appreciated you telling the stories that you've been through. Some of you have been through things that maybe you never told anybody about. Nobody around you ever knew that you were dealing with it. And I think that that's one of the problems of suicide and suicidal ideations, is that so many times people don't know what it is that others are going through. The last one that I received was a report of a news anchor. She was a 27-year-old young news anchor in a prominent radio or television station in America, and she had completed the act of suicide, and everyone who was left behind was completely shocked by that. They didn't understand. They didn't know why. And they asked question after question, and the comments were very interesting. They said that she was happy. She was the most happy person that they knew, and nobody had any idea that that was how she was feeling. And from some of the reports that I got from many of you, you said the exact same thing. If you were dealing with it yourself, or you had someone that you cared about that followed through with their thoughts, you said the same thing. No one would have known if you would have watched them from the outside, and that's really true in many cases, that you can't tell just by watching, so it's very challenging. It's a very challenging thing to come to terms with, but suicide is a public and a mental health issue that leaves a lasting impact on families and communities, as those who are left behind are asking many of the same questions. Some of you that gave me your responses, why? And that's an answer that we will never be able to get from someone. Why did you do this? What happened? And the deeper questions of what did I miss? What was going on in their life that I didn't see at the time? And this is important to say, and it's important for you to hear. It's not your fault. That decision that was made was entirely theirs on their own. We don't know why they made it, but you have to understand that, survivor's guilt is a real thing. And sometimes when we live on beyond a moment like that, we carry that with us. Maybe the most important part of this content, the most important focus of this content, is to start the process perhaps of helping you to find healing in your own life and take another step forward. Just take another step forward in your own life. I'm wondering, as a part of this first video that we're going to do, would you be willing perhaps to share your thoughts? Maybe you could share your story, and maybe your story would help somebody. Now, I know that sometimes the immediate response is, no, I don't think so, but I want you to consider that. And if you don't want to do that publicly, in just a moment when we wrap this up, we will provide my contact information there. But if you would like to share your story or any part of your story in the comments, I truly do. I really enjoy reading the comments that people leave, and I think that maybe it would be helpful for someone who is going through a situation like that. But tonight we just wanted to open up the discussion and kind of help everyone come together and realize that we are all affected by this. Nobody is left out from this. And so many times people are struggling and suffering in silence, and we just don't know it. They're smiling at you at work. They're smiling at home. They're dealing with life as it comes. But let's just all be honest. Life is incredibly stressful right now. And we just wanted to open the discussion and say, if there's anything that you wanted to share with us, or if we can be a help to you, reach out to us. My contact information will be down there in the links in just a few moments. And also, as we conclude tonight, just a few resources. The Suicide Hotline. We're going to put that graphic up for you to see it. In recent years, they've changed the number. The number is simply 988. 988. You can call completely anonymously. No one will know who you are. You can share your story with them. You can talk to somebody. I've talked to several people over this last week who also said that it was important for them to be able to talk to somebody. So in our next time together, we're going to open up that discussion about how we can do that. So tonight, as we wrap up, we just hope that something that we said so far will be a help to you. We want you to stay tuned, and the resources that we will provide on the link, I hope that they'll be a benefit to you. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time right here on Mental Health Moments.